Hello, everybody. Welcome. So my name is Veronica. I'm a senior psychotherapist at My Therapy NYC, and today I'll be talking about self-care. This is a topic that's really important to me, so I hope you come away with this presentation with some more knowledge and feeling inspired to start implementing some self-care in your day-to-day life. So I'm going to share my screen and let's get started. Okay, so this presentation today is called Self-Care Toolbox, Strategies for a Healthy Mind, Body, and Balanced Living. So we're going to announce some giveaway winners at the end of the presentation, and we're also going to have a Q&A portion, so just make sure you stick around till the end. Okay. So we're going to start off with the poll question. So you're going to answer, which of the following burnout symptoms have you experienced? Okay, so I'll just give everybody a second to answer the poll, and then we're going to get to the results a little later on in the presentation. Right, so we'll get into some intentions for today. So the first is exploring common causes of burnout. We're also going to define self-care and explore why it's important for our health and well-being. We're going to learn about the different types of self-care. We're going to assess what your personal boundaries can look like. We're going to identify self-care strategies that align with your individual needs, values, and interests. And we're going to hopefully begin pursuing a life worth living once we get all of this information. Okay, so now we're going to get into some definitions of terms. So these are general terms that are going to be brought up throughout the presentation. So the first is self-care. This is a multidimensional, multifaceted process of purposeful engagement and strategies that promote healthy functioning and enhance well-being. So this is all about intentionally engaging in practices to improve your quality of life, and to basically just take care of yourself the way you care for others. Wellness is a holistic integration of physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, fueling the body, engaging the mind, and nurturing the spirit. So this is basically what we're trying to attain by engaging in self-care. So self-care will eventually lead to wellness. And then values are the things you believe that are important in the way you live and work. They usually determine your priorities, your goals, and your interests. And they're probably the measures you use to tell if your life is turning out the way you want it to. So stress, I'm sure everybody knows what this is. This is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or demanding circumstances. So you can also feel stressed about things that are positive yet still demanding. So for example, like if you're planning for a wedding, that's something that's really exciting, but also very stressful at the same time. Burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion brought on by prolonged or repeated stress that feels as though it cannot be alleviated. So the distinction that makes burnout different from everyday stress is that feeling that it cannot be alleviated. And the thing is that it can, it's just this feeling of hopelessness that you'll always feel this way. And then boundaries are the personal guidelines we set to help us maintain healthy habits and relationships or to protect ourselves according to our comfort levels and values. So these can look different for each person, and we'll get into boundaries a little bit later on in the presentation. And then fulfillment is the actual or felt satisfaction of needs and desires, feeling that one's abilities and talents are being fully used. So this is basically feeling content with the way you're living your life. Okay, so how stressed are we as a society? So 55% of Americans report being stressed throughout the day, and this statistic comes from the American Institute of Stress. 33% of people report that their stress feels extreme or unmanageable. So when you ask someone how they're doing, the usual response is good or fine. So it may feel like you're the only person who just doesn't have it together. but this statistic will tell you that that's definitely not true. Everybody's stressed. 49% of adults report their behavior is negatively affected by stress. So this makes sense because we don't have as much patience or tolerance for other people when we're stressed. And after a while, this can start to impact our relationships. Which brings us to the next one. 76% of workers report that stress from work affects their personal relationships negatively. So it can be difficult to prioritize your relationships when all your energy is going into your work. And then 63% of US workers report that they're ready to quit their job to avoid work-related stress. And this is something I've actually been hearing from a majority of my clients lately. Just so many people are fed up to the point of considering changing careers completely, which is a huge change. So you know people are hitting their limits. Okay, and some common causes of stress. Work is a big one. So this can be impacted by the type of work you do, how many hours you work a week, whether or not you have benefits, feeling undervalued and underpaid in the work that you're doing. And this is probably the most common cause of stress. Also, finances. I know everyone is feeling this right now. The cost of living, especially in New York City, is unbearable. So I know a lot of people are stressed about finances right now. And then family responsibilities. So having children or other family members that you're responsible for can lead to increased stress. Health problems. So if you're dealing with any chronic illnesses, navigating health insurance is a big one, struggling with access to care. Relationships. So this doesn't even have to be related to having conflicts in your relationships. Just maintaining and nurturing your relationships can feel like a lot and can be stressful. And then global events is another one that we've been impacted by a lot. COVID, especially, was a collective trauma that we're all still healing from. Also, we're in a time of divisive politics. Also, just witnessing the effects of war. There's so much that makes life feel heavy right now. So how do we know when stress becomes burnout? Okay, so these are the common signs of burnout. I'm going to go through them and then we're going to look back at that poll to see what people answered. So one sign is chronic physical and mental exhaustion. So this is that feeling of like being tired of feeling tired, having difficulty concentrating, feeling checked out. Another one is worry and anxiety. So always feeling on edge, having catastrophic thoughts about the future, getting lost in your thoughts, frequent feelings of cynicism, anger, or irritability. So basically believing that nothing will ever change and having this overall sense of hopelessness, maybe snapping at others easily, just not having patience at all. And physical symptoms such as GI issues, muscle tension, headaches. So even if we're not mentally aware of being burnt out, the body always has a way of alerting us that something is wrong. So now let's look at the poll answers and let's see what people said. Okay, so here are the poll answers. Okay, so wow, a lot of people said all of the above. So feeling all of these symptoms, a lot of physical and mental exhaustion, worry, anxiety, not as much feelings of cynicism, and not as much physical symptoms. Okay, but all of the above. Wow. I know I've definitely been at the point of feeling all of these at once. So it seems like everybody's in the same boat. Okay. Okay, so we're going to get into the mind-body connection, which is a more holistic approach to wellness. So this is the key framework that we'll be using to conceptualize burnout today. This is very different from a more traditional medical approach that tends to pathologize, or a capitalist approach that prioritizes productivity and consumerism, so buying things under the guise of self-care. And overall, practicing self-care and reducing stress can not only make you feel better right now, but it can also protect your long-term health in the future. And several studies actually show that interventions to improve psychological health can have a beneficial impact on your cardiovascular health later on. So we're going to watch a video that goes into a little more detail about this.
Are you sleeping restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
I will say that video was a big wake-up call for me and made me realize that I really need to change the way I deal with my own stress. And I thought it was very surprising too that, we can actually be predisposed to be more stressed out depending on like biological factors, our upbringing. So there's definitely a lot of like environmental and biological things that play into how we experience stress. Okay, so why does self-care feel so difficult? I get this question all the time. So the first reason is because we all have a lot of internalized beliefs that prioritizing yourself is selfish. We're constantly receiving messages that taking time to rest makes you lazy or self-centered. But actually, when we nurture ourselves, we have more capacity to nurture others and really show up fully in every area of our lives. We're also navigating systems that value productivity and achievement over connectedness and joy. We always ask children, what do you want to be when you grow up? Rather than what kind of person do you want to be? And also, a lot of people are in work environments where it's sink or swim, and it constantly puts you in a cycle of thinking, I'm not good enough or I'm a failure. And also having many others to care for. So if you have children, elderly parents, family members, I mean, as a therapist, having a lot of clients, can make you feel like um, you don't have the capacity to fully care for yourself because you don't have the time. And also growing up in cultures that value self-sacrificing behavior. So coming from a Puerto Rican family, I know this all too well, and it's something that I'm still trying to unlearn. And our brains are hardwired to survive, not to make us happy. So we have to learn how to be happy through our beliefs and through our actions. So how do we do that? By building your own self-care toolbox. Okay. So this is the wellness wheel. It's a breakdown of different areas of life that contribute to a sense of well-being. And we can strive to have balance between all of these pieces, but there are always going to be some that you give more attention to than others. And since time is so limited, it can be more realistic to just cycle through each piece during different periods of your life, like whenever you need one more. So, for example, after a loss, you might need a lot of emotional and spiritual wellness, and that will be the priority during that time. And we'll go into each piece in more detail. Okay, so social wellness is developing a sense of connection, belonging, and a well-developed support system. So this can look like connecting with friends and family on a regular basis, but you want to make sure that these are people that make you feel supported and nourished. And also putting time into our relationships can help us assess our own sense of identity. So like asking yourself, who are the people I feel the most myself with? What are the qualities I look for in a friend? Do I embody these myself? There's a lot of self-reflection that can also come with focusing in on your relationships. Finding spaces where you feel a sense of safety, community, and belonging. So this is especially important if you're part of a marginalized group. Having a strong sense of community can contribute to increased resilience and combat feelings of aloneness. And also maintaining healthy boundaries in your relationships is a prime example of social wellness, and we'll talk more about boundaries in a bit. Okay, so emotional wellness is coping effectively with life and building resilience. So some examples, keeping a journal to assess your emotions and your mood. So for this, you can find journal prompts that align with specifically what you need. One that I like to use, it's an acronym GIHR, and it stands for gratitude. So reflecting on any sources of gratitude that you have for the day, intentions, so what you want to get out of the day or the week, things you want to strive for, heaviness, so any sources of stress, things that are weighing you down, and release. So anything you feel like you need to release some of that stress and that tension. And then engaging in mindful activities to manage stress and anxiety. So a specific example for this is progressive muscle relaxation. And this is an exercise that involves tightening and relaxing your muscle groups one at a time in a specific pattern. So the goal is to release tension from your muscles, and it helps you recognize what tension even feels like or looks like in your body. And other mindful activities can be drawing, walking, anything that gets you out of your head and engages your five senses. So we can actually see how to do a progressive muscle relaxation by doing it together. Okay, so for this, you want to make sure that you're comfortable wherever you're sitting. You can close your eyes if you feel comfortable and just relax into this.
Progressive muscle relaxation is an exercise that reduces stress and anxiety in your body by having you slowly tense and then relax each muscle. This exercise can provide an immediate feeling of relaxation, but it's best to practice frequently. With experience, you will become more aware of when you are experiencing tension, and you will have the skills to help you relax. During this exercise, each muscle should be tensed, but not to the point of strength. If you have any injuries or pain, you can skip the affected area. Pay special attention to the feeling of releasing tension in each muscle and the resulting feeling of relaxation. Let's begin. Sit back or lie down in a comfortable position. Shut your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. Begin by taking a deep breath and noticing the feeling of air filling your lungs. Hold your breath for a few seconds. Release the breath slowly and let the tension leave your body. Take in another deep breath and hold it. Again, slowly release the air. Even slower now, take another breath. Fill your lungs and hold the air. Slowly release the breath and imagine the feeling of tension leaving your body. Continue breathing slowly throughout this exercise. Try to focus on the feeling of air filling and leaving your lungs. It will be normal for your mind to wander. When it does, do your best to bring it back to the moment. Now, move your attention to your feet. Begin to tense your feet by curling your toes in the arch of your foot. Hold on to the tension and notice what it feels like. Release the tension in your foot. Notice the new feeling of relaxation. Next, begin to focus on your lower leg. Tense the muscles in your calves. Hold them tightly and pay attention to the feeling of tension. Release the tension from your lower legs. Again, notice the feeling of relaxation. Remember to continue taking deep breaths. Next, tense the muscles of your upper leg and pelvis. You can do this by tightly squeezing your thighs together. Make sure you feel tenseness without going to the point of strain. And release. Feel the tension leave your muscles. Begin to tense your stomach and chest. You can do this by sucking your stomach in. Squeeze harder and hold the tension. Release the tension. Allow your body to go limp. Let yourself notice the feeling of relaxation. Continue taking deep breaths. Breathe in slowly, noticing the air fill your lungs, and hold it. Release the air slowly. Feel it leaving your lungs. Next, tense the muscles in your back by bringing your shoulders together behind you. Hold them tightly. Tense them as hard as you can without straining, and keep holding. Release the tension from your back. Feel the tension slowly leaving your body, and the new feeling of relaxation taking its place. Notice how different your body feels when you allow it to relax. Tense your arms all the way from your hands to your shoulders. Make a fist and squeeze all the way up your arm. Hold it. Release the tension from your arms and shoulders. Notice the feeling of relaxation in your fingers, hands, arms, and shoulders. Notice how your arms feel limp and at ease. Move up to your neck and your head. Tense your face and your neck by distorting the muscles around your eyes and mouth. Release the tension. Again, notice the new feeling of relaxation. Finally, tense your entire body. Your feet, legs, stomach, chest, arms, head, and neck. Tense harder without straining. Hold on to the tension. Now release. Allow your whole body to go limp. Pay attention to the feeling of relaxation and how different it is from the feeling of tension. Continue taking deep breaths. Begin to wake your body up by slowly moving your muscles. Adjust your arms and legs. Stretch your muscles and open your eyes when you're ready. You've completed the progressive muscle relaxation exercise. Repeat this exercise daily to experience the ongoing benefits of relaxation.
Wow, I definitely needed that. So maybe just take a moment to sit with however you're feeling after doing that mindfulness exercise. And just really let it soak through your body. And that specific type of meditation is really good for like right before bed. If you have trouble falling asleep, doing something like that can at least put you in the state where your body's ready to fall asleep. Okay. And then the last example of emotional wellness is processing stressors with your therapist. So AEDP therapy stands for Accelerated Experiential Dynamic Processing. And this type of therapy can help with learning how to identify and sit with your emotions. So feeling your feelings is scary. I totally get that. And it's important to have a space where you can do so safely in the presence of someone who really cares about you. So you can learn more about that type of therapy on our website. Our therapists do offer that. So something to look into if you're interested. Okay, and then we'll get into spiritual wellness. So this is expanding our sense of purpose and meaning in life. So some examples: spending time alone to reflect on your values and sense of purpose, connecting deeply with nature, exploring your ethical and religious beliefs. And even non-religious people can do this by, just acknowledging our sense of universality, our interconnectedness with all beings, practicing gratitude, and also sitting in nature is a way to practice this. And also just being compassionate towards yourself and other people. Another type of meditation that can be helpful with this, if you have a hard time being kind to yourself, is loving kindness meditation. So it's basically a mantra that you repeat to yourself, and it's another way of remembering your connection to yourself, to others, and to all beings. So intellectual wellness is recognizing creative abilities and finding ways to expand knowledge and skills. So this can look like reading a book every month. Doesn't necessarily have to be nonfiction. Even fiction books can be intellectual wellness. Taking classes to learn new skills, watching documentaries on topics of interest. So I can give an example from my own life. This is a little embarrassing, but last year I got really interested in wildlife conservation and primatology. And it just brought me so much joy to learn about it, to read books about it. Um, so just having those little things that pique your interest that have nothing to do with your work. And to help with exploring these things, just think about things that you were interested in as a kid, but maybe abandoned later on in life. Okay, and physical wellness is recognizing the need for physical activity, diet, sleep, and nutrition. So, some examples: exercising regularly. This can look like daily walks, stretching, yoga, going to the gym. So, this is all about finding what works best for you personally and your schedule. So, if you're really busy and you don't have time to get to the gym, even 10 minutes of some kind of movement can make a really big difference in how you feel throughout the day. And then tending to any chronic illnesses is very important. So making sure that you're maintaining your doctor's appointments, taking any medication that you need, being mindful of what you put in your body. So just making sure that you're getting all your nutrients. And prioritizing sleep is a big one. And I know that's probably one of the hardest for most people. We want to try to get at least 7 hours of sleep, because when you sleep fewer hours than what your body needs, you'll start to accumulate what's called sleep debt. Um, so, for example, if you lose 2 hours of sleep per night, you'll accumulate 14 hours of sleep debt by the end of the week. And having high levels of sleep debt can affect your mood, your energy, your concentration. So, the way to get around this is like trying to take naps if you can throughout the day. So, even like a 15 to 30-minute nap can help repay that sleep debt. And environmental wellness is occupying pleasant, stimulating environments that support well-being. So this can look like keeping your living space clean and organized. So making your bed every morning is something that just sets the tone for the day. Making sure that any workspaces you have at home are nice and organized can help with concentration. Another one is decorating your space with mementos, photos, plants, anything that serves as a reminder of those sources of joy that you have. So for me, I love video games. I love The Legend of Zelda, and I have so much Zelda stuff in my house. And every time I look at them, it just makes me so happy. Um, Also, I have a lot of photos of loved ones. Um, anything that just feels wholesome and aligns with your values and who you are. And also, plants serve as a good self-care reminder. So if your plants are wilting, that's probably a sign that you need to slow down a little bit and check in with yourself. And also taking mindful walks in nature. So like I said before, this also aligns with spiritual wellness too. And basically, overall, it's this process of respecting and appreciating the earth, and feeling connected to it. And you'll notice too, a lot of these forms of wellness kind of overlap with each other. And then financial wellness is satisfaction with current and future financial situations. So even if you're not satisfied with your current financial situation, just having a plan for the future can improve your sense of wellness in this area. So this can look like creating monthly budgets, just getting a sense of what you want your finances to look like, addressing debt and putting away savings. So even thinking of things that you want to save up for, like a nice vacation, being intentional with how you spend your money. So these are all things that you can talk about in therapy too. I think it's always helpful to explore your relationship with money and maybe identify any barriers that are getting in the way of your financial wellness. Okay, and then the last one is occupational wellness. So this is personal satisfaction and enrichment from one's work. So for this, an example can be assessing if your job aligns with your values and strengths. And if it doesn't, ask yourself how it's impacting your day to day. What are you willing to tolerate? What got you into this job in the first place? And are those reasons still valid? So just asking yourself these questions on the day to day can be important. Embracing opportunities that inspire and challenge you. So if you're getting bored with doing the same things at work every day, see if there are ways to switch it up a little bit. Like an example of this is this presentation that I'm doing right now. This was something outside of my usual day-to-day, and it was really exciting to put everything together and try something new. Understanding how to balance leisure with work. Hopefully this presentation will help you learn how to do that. And then envisioning your plan B. So a plan B is a career that you could see yourself enjoying if you ever decide to switch fields. So an example, some of mine are like zoologist, music teacher, and these don't necessarily have to be realistic. It's just a reminder that you're never truly tied to one career, and it normalizes this process of being able to change your mind because a lot of us just feel stuck. Okay, and this is a little personal, but these are little sneak peeks into my own self-care toolbox. So for intellectual and emotional wellness, I started a band with my partner in 2023, and it has completely changed my life. I was able to get back into a skill that I loved as a child. And I think the process of writing music, writing songs has really helped with emotional wellness too, and just like processing my feelings. And overall, it's helped with my sense of confidence. And then for environmental and spiritual wellness, I love going on hikes. I love being in nature. Being in front of a waterfall is probably my idea of a safe place or a peaceful place. And for social and occupational wellness, I love spending time with my coworkers. And it's always just such a reminder of how lucky I am to work in a field with such wonderful human beings. So these are just some examples of things that make my life feel very full. And even just seeing these pictures makes me so happy right now. Okay, so now we'll get into how to set healthy boundaries and prioritize your needs. Okay, so the first step is assessing the areas of life that are taking too much of your time and energy. So for this, sometimes I'll have my clients create a pie chart to visualize the areas of life that need more attention. So I'll show you an example of my own in the next slide. You also want to learn how to respectfully say no. So dialectical behavior therapy has a lot of helpful acronyms for how to effectively communicate these things to other people. One example is the FAST skill. So this skill allows you to maintain your self-respect and requires you to be truthful about problems without sacrificing your values or integrity. So the acronym FAST stands for fair. So you want to be fair to yourself and the other person, validate your own feelings and the feelings of the other person. A is for don't over apologize. So no apologizing for being alive or making a request at all. No apologies for disagreeing. No looking ashamed. No invalidating the invalid. S is for stick to your values. So don't sell out your values for reasons that aren't important. Be clear on what you believe is the moral or the valued way of thinking and acting. And T is for be truthful. So don't lie, don't act helpless when you're not, and don't exaggerate or make up excuses. So you'll get an email at the end of this presentation that has a bunch of resources, and one of them will be this skill. So if you want to learn a little more about it, you'll get that later on. And you want to have open conversations with your friends and family about how their behavior impacts you. Okay, so this is the example of the pie chart that I was talking about. So work will inevitably take up a lot because we spend most of the week there. But you want to just make sure you have good balance in those other areas. So I have a little bit of social, creativity is like music and art. Leisure is the time I spend like watching my favorite shows, playing video games. And alone time, I consider more that like reflective time, meditating, exercising. So this would probably be the one piece that I want just a little bit bigger. But it can be really helpful to create one of these for yourself just to get a good picture. Okay, and then continuing setting boundaries. So another one is utilizing sick days and PTO. I recognize that this can be difficult if you have limited PTO, but you want to just use whatever you can get. You want to acknowledge that it takes strength and courage to communicate boundaries. So celebrate whenever you're able to successfully set one. And recognize that doing so can drastically improve your quality of life. So just notice how setting boundaries impacts your relationships and your emotional well-being as you start to set them. And again, this is another thing that you can learn about in therapy with your therapist. Okay, so we're getting to the end. So these are just some questions for further reflection. You can screenshot this to save for later. These would all make really good journaling prompts or questions to bring to your therapist. Okay, so these are just some resources. Again, you're going to get an email with a long list of resources, so look out for that soon. Okay, and now we can get into the Q&A portion. So if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in the chat. Here, I'll actually stop sharing this. Okay. So I do have a question that came in before the presentation. How do I deal with the guilt that comes up whenever I try to take time for myself? So this is a great one, and I think this is something I still struggle with myself. And I also process this with my clients all the time. So like I said earlier, if you are in therapy, just use that space to explore where some of that guilt might be coming from. And your therapist can also help you learn how to reframe your negative self-talk in a way that's more compassionate so that you can basically give yourself permission to engage with that self-care. And our brains are very malleable. So the more you repeat something, the more automatic it becomes. So if you're constantly telling yourself, like, I'm selfish for doing this, I shouldn't be doing this, that's going to be the automatic response. So it's just about reframing those thoughts and being kinder to yourself. What is the H in GIHR? The H is heaviness. So any sources of heaviness or stress, things that you feel are weighing you down in life right now. I actually also have a question that one of my clients asked me, and maybe I'll share it with everybody else if they have the same question. I really want to put these tools into practice, but I don't know where to start. What should be the first step? So getting started is probably the hardest part of this entire process. But I think an easier way to ease into it is taking a look at that wellness wheel and just pick one area to start with. Ideally, the one that feels the most attainable to you. And then slowly work towards building up the other areas depending on what you feel like you need the most. But it is hard. Right, and if there's no other questions, I guess we can wrap up for today. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you come away with this with some more information, and I hope you start to practice some of these self-care tools in your everyday life. So here, I'm going to share my screen one more time so you have my information. Okay, so this is all my info. If you have any other questions that you don't want to ask here, feel free to send me an email. And also, if you're interested in starting therapy, you can check out our website at mytherapynyc.com. We're a group private practice in the Flatiron neighborhood, and we work with individuals, couples, and groups. We also offer in-person and virtual sessions. So I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. Enjoy the beautiful weather and look out for that list of resources. You'll be getting those soon. And I'll stick around just a little bit if there's any last minute questions. Okay, David says, time seems to be my biggest hurdle. I never have enough time. And when I do get a day off, I feel unsure which direction to go. So this is definitely the hardest part. And I think implementing some of those mindfulness exercise can be an easy start because they're so quick, right? So you can do a 3-minute meditation in the morning before you get your day started, and that in itself can just change your mindset going into the day. So just those little things like that, trying to squeeze them in here and there, can help with that time hurdle. So I hope that was helpful. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody. And thank you again for coming.